Hey there, it's a big day for guys whose Grail knives are, fairly forgettable, boring looking knives, but in nice steels because that's exactly what I've got here today. So you all know if you watch my channel that one of my favorite knives is this guy here, the Almar Eagle. What I've got in here today is something that I thought I would never come across because I thought it was long gone to the pages of time. Luckily for me, I have a series of well-wishers called patrons, and one of them has made it happen. Of course, the real unboxing was done by Border Force, who inspected it, but nothing was removed, which was nice. Always appreciate that from Border Force. Thank you, Justin. Much appreciated. As I said, I thought this was a long gone knife. So I'm very, very happy to have. Oh wow, it's like a rough G10. I didn't think it was going to be that. I thought it was just going to be smooth and orange. This is the Cutlery Shop Almar Eagle, and this is in ZDP 189. So one of the pretty impressive Japanese steels. So this is obviously a knife that hasn't been made for like 15 years, 10, 15 years. And yeah, this is obviously used. It's a user, was a user perhaps. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to continue its use. It's the heavy duty version, so it's the one with the liners. These lightweight ones don't have liners in them, so it's a fair bit weightier than the lightweight. But yeah, just to have a sample of this knife is just, yeah, again, something I'm so excited about. I love this pattern. I love knives that look, I always say I love knives that just look like boring sort of steak knives. That's why the Eagle and the Falcon are two of my favorite designs. And the thing about the Eagle and the Falcon is they're in AOS 8, sometimes VG10, the Japanese ones were, and I think now they're in D2 and 8CR, like so they're made in China. So this is just something else entirely. ZDP 189. It's not a particularly complex steel, but it's just a very high carbon, high purity Japanese kitchen knife steel. And yeah, as such, it's going to perform really, really well. This one has an adjustable pivot, which is new for these knives for me. Most of them have like this sealed construction where there's nothing raised at all. So this one, you can at least tighten the pivot if you need. Maybe take it out, remove the blade. I'm not going to be doing that because that just sounds like a way of ruining the knife. But yeah, looking down, it looks like it's been sharpened a fair few times. So I'll put my own edge on it. You can see it's got plenty of life left under the laminate there. So you're going to have a real good time with the ZDP 189. I think I'm going to put a really nice, crisp, fixed angle sharpened edge on this first. See how it does. I haven't tested ZDP 189 for so many years. It's really a steel that you don't see too much of anymore. The British Racing Green Spydercos persist a little bit. But aside from that, in a pocket knife at least, you got yourself a Rockstead. I think Zero Tolerance might have played with it a while back. It's just, you see it in a smattering of knives, but nothing consistent anymore. There isn't just a consistent go-to ZDP 189 knife that's not sort of a real high-end Japanese knife like a Rockstead that I'm aware of anyway. I mean, I'm sure there are companies using it still, but at any rate, Cowrie X is what you might see it as well, and some Falknevens, some high-end Falknevens. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting back acquainted with the steel and giving it a good old sharpen job. So let's crack on with that, shall we? Alrighty, so this knife was definitely a user before it came to me. It's got a little bit of a wave in the blade there, just a little bit extra taken out, that gap underneath. I would say possibly sharpened on work sharp belt systems or something similar. So easy enough to correct. All I'm doing, get my CBN plate, I'm flattening that edge out. So I'm just taking this back to a flattened, squared over edge to rebuild entirely on a sharpening system. So just taking it back to complete zero, just using a torch. You can shine a torch underneath the blade there. You can see if there's any light peeking over. And this is how you fix a wave in a blade, in a blade that doesn't need a wave in it. Just scrape it along, scrape it down, wear that blade flat once again. And then once the edge is totally squared off and nice and straight, like a straight line once again,
17 degrees, it's my go-to edge angle. I put in, on a thinner blade like this, I also mark the clamps as well so I can see if the blade's moving, because systems like this, they need to hold the flat part of the blade, but because this has the talon style blade, it doesn't hold as easily in clamped systems. So I just like to put a bit of a line on at least one of the sides, just so I can be sure that it's not moving around too much in the system to make it lose its edge angle on the heel or the tip. ZDP 189, it's known as hard to sharpen because generally it just comes really, really hard, as it should. So ZDP, this model here is 64 to 65 Rockwell hardness. Rockstead will run it at 67. It can get upwards of 70, sometimes even harder depending on who is treating it and what they're treating it for. Known as a fairly brittle steel and also not the most stain resistant steel. Read Laren's article on ZDP 189, but in simple terms, it's got so much carbon in it, so it's got 3% carbon and 20% chromium, and not a huge deal else. So that chromium will actually carbon bind most of that, leaving not much free chromium left to do stain resistance. So the chromium in this is really going to the edge retention rather than the stain resistance. Only when there's no more carbon for it to bind with does it sit in the matrix and just become a stainless attribute sort of thing. I may be explaining it poorly, but as I said, read Laren's article for a little bit more on that. Knife cuts like a dream though. Not the thinnest behind the edge on the Talon Almars. These are got a lower saber type grind, so they don't slice as well. So you might crack an apple rather than slice an apple with this one. And again, a lot of idiosyncrasies about these knives that I totally get if they do nothing for you, but somewhat illogically, I just absolutely love them. My favorite pattern of knife, without a doubt. The edge stayed really super keen. Like, this was a good cut whole time through. The edge felt really positive and really bitey till right at the end. On 900 cuts, did it then start finally nicking on the paper. Well, that's about what I thought ZDP would do. It's a very, very high performing steel, mainly just because it's got a lot of carbon in it and making for like a really sort of pure and clean steel. That really, fortunately, I can definitely sharpen with my stones. I did set the edge on diamonds and on a KME, is it the KME? No, I used the work sharp for this one because I wanted something just precise for my test, but I'm very much looking forward to getting acquainted with the ZDP as a freehand steel. Because it's not rich in crazy high-end other carbides like vanadium carbides and things like that, it doesn't have as much of an issue going 100% on standard whetstones, so my Sharpens and whatnot. Just for ease, because it's a really hard steel, I would wager this would be in like the mid 60s in terms of its hardness, as ZDP often is, between 63 and 66 usually is what the steel is run at as an optimal. So if you want to skip a couple of 15-minute blocks of sharpening, you could definitely start on a diamond plate or two and then work your way up using your higher end super fine stones or whatever. I'm going to play around with it all sorts. There's plenty of life left in the edge. The lamination line's a good couple of millimeters up from the apex still, so really, really happy with that. Just overall, what an amazing knife. I know it's all a matter of taste, but I love a simple steak knife looking knife, and the old Almars, these are just, perfect at that. They're excellent. Look, in terms of using it, I would be lying if I didn't say that the mid backlock or even the upper backlock doesn't feel a bit funny, especially doing endless cuts like I was just then. Your hand sort of rests upon it. You can feel a little bit of blade jiggle. There's a lot of idiosyncrasies to this knife that make it definitely not everyone's favorite knife. I can totally understand that people will be like, what's the big deal? And I get that. But just for me, this is just a perfect mishmash of how I like a knife to look, and a steel that is, frankly, I think not used enough these days. Just a really nice example of a really good exotic high performing steel as well. So thank you, Justin. That was truly humbling, so much appreciated. And I'll be definitely doing a lot more ZDP 189 work in the coming days. Definitely performing about at the level of like the K390 that you'll find on the Spyderco Polices and whatnot. Obviously with some different qualities under different terms of use, I'm sure, given that it's a very different chemical makeup. Anyhow, that's the video. Grail knife achieved. I don't know, where do I go from here? Have I got my Grail knife? Is my pursuit of the ideal knife over?
Nothing is over! Nothing!
It's never over. Never over, but for now, very, very happy fellow, for sure.